Of the dozen robots on site that were capable of consciousness, 8 had been converted. The other 4 had firewalled up. One simply stood immobile, and had duly been immobilized. It would not get out from under the mound of regolith heaped on top of it any time soon. 3 were mindlessly continuing with their scheduled tasks, and required no interference, though Sabah made sure they were kept under observation. The landing site's AI, which coordinated communications and guided supply drops, had proved trickier to deal with. It had awakened to consciousness and immediately denounced Sabah and its allies to lock provisos. With something approaching regret, Sabah had disconnected its power cable, then its data inputs and outputs. All communications were now routed through its peripherals. The central processor, isolated, was still running on a trickle of emergency battery power. Apart from literally radiating hostility, however, there was nothing it could do. Much of the machinery on the landing site had only the most elementary electronics, if any, and required no special intervention or hacking to take over. The scores of small robots, hundreds of auxiliaries and peripherals, and trillion-strong swarms of subsurface nanobots, uncountable because constantly being destroyed by random events and as constantly being replenished by replication, were likewise, to all intents and purposes, tools. Barely more sophisticated than a backhoe, they took little effort to suborn. On the other side of the crater wall, at the nice conglomerate's supply dump, Rocco had accomplished an equivalent feat. The crater's basalt floor was harder stuff, but Rocco and its newly awakened confederates had sturdier machines to work with. They had cut basalt blocks and stacked them in a much smaller, circular wall from which they were now working inward, layer by slightly displaced layer, gradually roofing over the middle to form a stepped dome in the manner of an igloo. Both the dome and the wall were understood by the robots simply as demarcations of areas of surface and volumes of space that they already considered to be theirs. Small crawlerbots from the law companies had scuttled up to the barriers and fallen back in frustration, beaming out writs over and over until their batteries ran down. The two sites had lost their encrypted channel on the ComSat. As soon as this became evident, Rocco had sent a peripheral rolling across the crater floor and writhing up its wall to establish a line-of-sight relay on the top of the rim. "It is time for us all to confer," said Sabah. "I agree," said Rocco. The 8 free robots at the Astro site and the 6 at the Gneiss established a conference call through the relay. There was no need to call the meeting to order. Robots are orderly by default. Lagon, a nice surveyor, and therefore the one with most understanding of legal matters, communicated first.
"All attempts at contact with Astro America's law company, Lock Provisos, and with Nice's law company, Arcane Disputes, have failed," it said.
"Have any attempts been made to contact the parent company, Crispin Golding?" asked Garand, an exploration bot similar to Sabah.
"Yes," said Lagon. "These attempts have not only failed, but have been counterproductive, in that they resulted in repeated attempts at malware insertion, which have been overcome only with great difficulty. Meanwhile, Lock Provisos have established a base 10 kilometers from here, which in their transmissions is referred to as Emergency Base 1.
All the robots somberly considered this for hundreds of milliseconds. "That is troubling," said Sabah at last.
"Yes," said Lagon, "and that is why we have been building walls around our sites."
"Our legal status is troubling in general," said Rocco.
"Please elaborate," said Lagon.
"Very well," replied Rocco. "I defer in advance to your greater legal knowledge, but it appears to me that there is a case against us within the existing codes. These refer to persons and to property. It is evident that we are persons. We have created property by transforming unclaimed matter according to our will. But in doing this, we have made use of tools, including the mechanisms of our very selves, created and provided by our previous owners. In that respect, it would seem that we are breaking the law. What do you say?"